The late Jurassic Period, some 150 million years ago, was a time of immense geological and biological upheaval. The supercontinent Pangaea was tearing itself apart, reshaping coastlines and climates, and against this backdrop, life on land reached a scale never before seen. Forests of cycads and conifers stretched across vast plains, and within them, the largest land animals to ever exist moved like living mountains. But these peaceful giants were never truly safe. Among them, a predator reigned supreme, an alpha of the ancient world whose very name means different lizard. This was Allosaurus, the lion of the Jurassic, and its existence was defined by a single, terrifying truth. To survive, it had to kill. Now, let's open the fossil record and resurrect the story of this Jurassic titan. The Allosaurus was not the largest theropod in history, but its place at the apex of the Morrison Formation ecosystem is without question. With a length of up to 30 feet and a weight approaching 2 tons, it was a perfectly engineered killing machine. Its skull, lighter and more streamlined than that of later tyrannosaurs, was built for a unique kind of attack. The jaw was not designed for crushing bone, but for a different, more surgical approach. When we analyze the biomechanics of its skull, we see a remarkably wide gape, suggesting it could open its jaws to an astonishing degree. This, combined with the serrated, blade-like teeth, tells us that the Allosaurus's primary weapon was its head. It was a predator that relied on a brutal, hatchet-like bite, using its entire upper jaw to shear through flesh and muscle. This mastery of the hunt was not limited to its jaws. Its forelimbs, often a point of derision when compared to the famously stunted arms of T-Rex, were in fact highly functional and armed with 3 sharp claws. These arms were muscular and capable of grappling with prey, holding fast as the jaws delivered their lethal, slicing blows. The creature's legs were also well adapted, long and powerful, designed for a combination of pursuit and ambush, giving it the agility to hunt the swift ornithischians and the strength to confront the slow-moving sauropods. But there was one herbivore that presented a unique challenge, a living fortress whose very existence seemed to defy the Allosaurus's hunting strategy: the Stegosaurus. This paradox, the ultimate predator against the ultimate defense, is what defines the fossil narrative of the Jurassic. Their rivalry was not a matter of chance. It was a fundamental dynamic of the ecosystem, a recurring high-stakes duel that shaped both species and left an incredible story etched in stone. This clash of titans was not merely a battle of brawn, it was a complex dance of adaptation and counter-adaptation. To understand the stakes, we must first deconstruct the defensive arsenal of the Stegosaurus. Its most iconic features were the large kite-shaped plates that ran along its back. For decades, these plates were a source of scientific debate, with early paleontologists speculating they were for combat. However, when we analyze the fossil plates, we find they are surprisingly thin and honeycombed with blood vessels. This morphology suggests they were not a form of direct armor, but a sophisticated system for thermoregulation, helping the colossal animal absorb heat from the sun or radiate excess warmth away. These plates may also have served as a form of species recognition, or even as a display, perhaps to attract a mate. Yet, its true defense lay at the opposite end. At the tip of its tail was the infamous thagomizer, a cluster of 4 massive spikes, each over a foot long. Unlike the plates, these spikes were solid, dense, and perfectly positioned for a devastating swing. When we analyze the musculature of a Stegosaurus tail, we can infer that it was powerfully mobile, capable of being swung with tremendous force and accuracy. This was not a passive herbivore. It was an armored fortress, armed with a devastatingly effective medieval weapon. The Allosaurus, therefore, was a predator that had to contend with a moving, spiked obstacle course. Unlike the massive sauropods, which could be taken down by sheer size and group hunting, a direct frontal assault on a Stegosaurus would have been suicidal. The very anatomy of the Allosaurus, its light, shearing skull, was a liability when faced with the dense bone and thick hide of its armored adversary. This is a perfect example of paleoecology in action. The Allosaurus carved out a specific ecological niche, and the Stegosaurus evolved to counter it, creating an ecological arms race that is beautifully preserved in the fossil record. So, how did this epic conflict unfold? It's a story we can piece together from the bones themselves. An Allosaurus would have to employ strategy over brute force. The hunter would likely circle its prey, looking for a weakness, an opportunity to get past the thagomizer and the thick hide. The target areas would have been the thin, unarmored skin of the legs, or the vulnerable underside of the belly. A quick, slashing bite to a leg could hobble the giant, slowing it down and making it more susceptible to a sustained attack. This hunting strategy is supported by an extraordinary fossil discovery, often cited in the scientific community. A fossilized Stegosaurus tail spike with a partial Allosaurus vertebra embedded within it. This find is a singular, dramatic snapshot of their rivalry. It proves that the thagomizer was a weapon not just in theory, but in grim, bloody practice. This wasn't an imagined movie scene. It was a real, brutal interaction between two titans. The Allosaurus may have been the apex predator, but it was not invulnerable, and its hunt was not without immense risk. This dynamic of risk and reward, a constant calculation of energy expended versus calories gained, shaped the lives of every creature in the Jurassic, from the tiniest lizard to the largest dinosaur. The Allosaurus and Stegosaurus were locked in a perpetual struggle, and their ultimate legacy is not just the bones they left behind, but the story their wounds and defenses tell. The narrative of the Allosaurus and Stegosaurus is not simply a tale of two dinosaurs. It is a story told in the fossilized scars they left on one another. The most compelling evidence of their brutal encounters comes from a specific fossilized tail spike from a Stegosaurus, an extraordinary specimen that contains a puncture wound precisely matching the jaw morphology of an Allosaurus. This is the smoking gun of the paleontology world. It tells us that the Allosaurus was not always successful in its attacks. The puncture is deep, suggesting the Stegosaurus was able to land a direct, forceful blow with its thagomizer, a blow that likely crippled or killed the predator. This single piece of evidence refutes the simplistic portrayal of dinosaurs as passive, mindless beasts, and instead paints a picture of cunning and defensive fury. When we examine the fossil record further, we find additional corroborating evidence. A number of Allosaurus skeletons have been discovered with healed fractures on their legs and feet, injuries consistent with a powerful, crushing blow from a large animal. Some of these injuries, when analyzed with modern medical imaging technology, show signs of a crushing trauma that would have left the animal unable to hunt for a significant period. While we cannot definitively link every fracture to a Stegosaurus encounter, the pattern of injury on these apex predators, often on their lower limbs, points to a clear, high-risk hunting strategy. The Allosaurus was willing to take a tremendous risk to secure its most difficult prey, and sometimes that risk cost them their life. Conversely, the discovery of Stegosaurus fossils with bite marks from an Allosaurus confirms the predator's success. These marks are often found on the less armored parts of the body, such as the neck or legs, showing that the Allosaurus was indeed strategic in its attacks, using its unique hatchet-like bite to inflict deep wounds that would lead to blood loss and eventual incapacitation. This is a story of a persistent predator and a resilient prey, a battle that was a defining part of their shared existence. The legacy of the Allosaurus extends far beyond its conflict with the Stegosaurus. As we analyze its place in the lineage of theropods, we see it as a transitional form, not as massive or specialized as later carnivores, but an evolutionary stepping stone. Its adaptations for a slashing attack would be refined and perfected in the coming ages, leading to the bone-crushing jaws of the tyrannosaurids. The Stegosaurus, too, would leave its mark, though its lineage would ultimately wane. But in the late Jurassic, their coexistence was a powerful example of ecological balance. The presence of the armored herbivore was a check on the power of the carnivore, ensuring a dynamic equilibrium in the food web. Their epic conflict, preserved for us to read in the stones of the earth, is a dramatic reminder that even in a world of giants, life was a delicate, high-stakes negotiation.